Hey, what is up, guys? My name's Jordan Newsome. I'm here to present about information security implementations for cyber operations 442 with Alex Hepp. So today, throughout the slides, we're going to be talking about the necessities of implementing proper employee training and hardware and policy implementations within an organization to properly secure and reduce outside threats and reduce, business compromisations. We're also going to go over the impacts of failed training with studies and research around the biggest concerns of security threats and reports from other official security management that have reported on some of the most common causes of attacks. Next, we're also going to cover then the recommendations as a business on how you can properly secure and lock down your business to limit and reduce those types of intrusions. The objective of this presentation overall is to learn how to establish certain policies and implementations to reduce those risks that may be present now or in the future within your organization. So the successful implementation of security systems and information security systems is necessary to ensure that the security of businesses and their practices are confidential and secured. There's an increasing concern of sufficient and proper organizational policies and the proper implementation that is used to effectively combat malicious events that take place on a company's network, including but not limited to viruses, malware, ransomware, phishing, and denial of service events. A study conducted by Datto Inc., an American cybersecurity and data company, asked over 1,000 managed service providers to pick the best three causes of ransom attacks within an organization. That data we're going to go over here momentarily. So we decided to take a specific approach and methodology to our research. And we know that in an organizational and business environment, there's an increasing concern that there's no sufficient or proper organizational policies that are sustainable to combat against security threats on a company's network. The methods that are used in this study and presentation are used to ensure reliability and credibility through quantitative research. This study has included data collection methods through document collection and numerical statistics to demonstrate the success and failures of individual organizations' security policies. The format here was chosen to allow for a flexible research and statistics that are used to influence the strategic planning for proper security implementations. This presentation also proposes the organizational standards from security experts and agencies that are invested in protecting employee and consumer data. So the results that we collected here, as mentioned before, was from a study conducted by Datto Inc., cybersecurity company, that asked 1,000 plus security officials on what types of ransomware were most commonly reported throughout their organization. So here at number one, they had talked about phishing emails, and that accounted for over 54% of organization compromise. So, employees receiving fake emails, links, and whatnot that they clicked on that redirected them to enter credentials elsewhere. Also, next was poor user practices and gullibility. So this tied directly into the employee training and confidentiality, and that accounted for 27% of all breaches. Again, hand in hand, just the overall lack of cybersecurity training. So, everything from employees to managers to executives, etc. Also, we had weak passwords and access management. So, allowing users and not cracking down on what users can access what information, and also weak passwords that were, either repeated or, one word or whatever it may be that allowed for an external attacker or an unauthorized user to compromise and gain access to a system or a server or a database. OpenRDP was also a massive issue that wasn't fully recognized. So that would allow for remote connections to your servers and databases and important information from an organization, and allowed people to extract that type of information that one may not want to leak. Clickbait as well, getting people to click on links again is phishing, and other links and whatnot that were used to maybe impersonate others, etc. Malicious websites, again, same thing with phishing, redirected people to websites that are installing malware and ransomware and whatnot on systems to, hold these businesses reliable and accountable for the information that they're gathering. Lost and stolen user credentials, and we'll cover that one later on as well. So employees and stuff writing down credentials on notepads left on desks, and anyone walking by, whether it be another employee or a manager or someone that may be in the building that's not supposed to be there, gaining access to those credentials and getting a security edge over the business. So some of the recommendations here that we wanted to cover. This segment's going to be a little longer, but first, you want to start by hiring out an experienced and knowledgeable data security manager and coordinator that's going to be able to properly coordinate and structure the importance of security systems and measures that need to be taken for all employees within that organization. Coordinators are going to be able to monitor and suggest security measures that should be taken to ensure employees are safely and effectively using organization systems and information. On top of that, we're going to need to develop a plan to ensure that all security measures implemented will be met and followed. The security plan should be developed by the information security manager, chief security officer, or an executive that knows the security needs of the organization. The security manager needs to develop the systemic goals and objectives of an organization and how they should be addressed by a security plan. The plan needs to be in compliance with the organization and ensure that all needs are met to accomplish the current and future goals. The developed plan also needs to factor in the organization's budget for a security system and training and meet the needs demanded. A plan should also strategically monitor employee practices, ensuring that the system is being utilized effectively. System security needs to be prioritized based on important business procedures and respect to procedures on how the data is collected, categorized, and dispersed, whether it's confidential or not. Furthermore, the data needs to outline how sensitive data is collected and accessible to authorized employees and clientele. Now that we've developed the plan, we need to implement the plan. So the system is analyzed and then examined by service providers and information security executives. Depending on the organization needs, service providers may be required to fully execute the desired needs. If service providers are needed, data and efficiency metrics need to be collected to break down productivity, efficiency, and cost of each provider to select the most applicable use. Service providers need to account for an organizational compliance and service quality demands. The plan is effectively implemented when the policies are deployed to the organization, ensuring that all employees and clientele who access such information are following the strict guidelines established within the plan. When the plan is implemented, the coordinator needs to observe the information and metrics of employees and clientele to properly document and propose security system concerns and identify troubled employees who lack security standard awareness. When the employees or clientele of an organization are identified as lacking knowledge and understanding of established security practices, they need to go about proper and adequate training to understand the risks they propose to the organization. Employees and clientele that pose a risk to the organization need to be segmented based on their knowledge so that effective training needs are adjustable to their knowledge, ensuring that everyone is educated by the end. Employees and clientele need to be segmented based on how long they've been loyal to the organization and what they currently provide. It's recommended that employees should never be informed of the benefits of the security plan to promote proactive behavior toward the educational program. This was found in a recent study, and they also proposed that educational trainers need to be outsourced to provide employees with the training related to the security plan. Testing the safeguards of the security system need to be completed by analyzing and conducting internal audits. Vulnerability assessment needs to be completed to determine the misconfigurations and weaknesses within the security policy. Furthermore, it should also be noted how employees are using suggested security practices and analyze the internal and external threats that can lead to ransomware within the systems. The collection of this data should be used through quantitative collection, noting the number of incidents and glitches that lead to system vulnerability. We also need to manage and observe internal risks of the implemented security system. The security system implemented needs to be able to address internal risks in the organization that could potentially lead to damage or misuse of organization, employee, customer, or clientele confidential information. Internal risks are discussed in further detail that are directly related to the education of employees. It's determined that employees who often change their passwords in a recent study will threaten the confidentiality of the organization. This is because the fact that when creating passwords, employees should be using complex passwords that are not easily memorized or guessable, which is going to make it more likely that a password is repeated from another platform they currently use, so they don't have to keep remembering new passwords. Using complex passwords from other platforms, though, or previously used alternatives, if encrypted, as mentioned, are going to lead to unlimited access to confidential information within an organization. As a coordinator needs to also have a determined detailed access control policy that is used to limit what data and information is accessed by who, what employees. The exchange of data needs to be restricted based on organizational roles and loyalty to limit the handling of such sensitive information. Information should always be encrypted and monitored through firewalls and other monitoring services to ensure that all information handled is in proper hands. Ensure that all information is also encrypted to prevent the misuse of information if compromised. Properly trained employees and clientele are the importance of safeguarding paper records. Paper records may not be the leading cause of misuse within an organization, but confidential employee or customer records that have not been properly disposed of can lead to dumpster diving in finding themselves in the hand of a potential criminal. Paper records should also be only accessed by authorized personnel through verification process, and all papers should be encrypted so that if obtained, that personnel is only able to access the information. On top of this, employees need to be trained and educated on the proper ways to report unauthorized use of organizational data. The security policy needs to clearly outline how an employee or client may go about reporting an incident to the information security team for further review. It's been mentioned in a recent study that employees need to be immediately reporting information they have about customer information leakage and or data that has been accessed by unauthorized users. The report needs to be properly documented according to the security policy and forwarded to the information security manager so that it may be reviewed and next steps can be planned. An organization also needs to plan how employee information is disabled and handled after termination. Termination letters need to include the information surrounding the access of organizational data without authorization and the repercussions and penalties that can incur if done so. If previous employees are not aware of this information, there's an increased posed risk of data being compromised from within the organization. Any confidential data or information needs to be immediately removed and restricted from terminated employees' phones, laptops, smartwatches, and other personalized devices. It's also recommended that any information that was encrypted and accessed by terminated employee should be re-encrypted to ensure future potential threat is minimized. External risks are also a massive risk to confidential data. These external risks will also affect how employees go about forwarding and handling information to others outside of the organization. Security system firewalls are a prime example of what need to be implemented to safeguard confidential information flowing in and out of the organization. It's been explained that a security firewall system is going to consist of policies that are restricting and managing the flow of data based on a trust scale, ensuring that data is not made accessible to other third parties, and introducing a demilitarized zone to separate internal and external assets. This security factor will prevent potential ransomware from the potential misuse of systems by employees and clientele. Additionally, information security measures need to be taken to ensure that user profiles are properly secured and authenticated. The employee or client profile needs to have a strong, complex password with a secured system to reduce the risk of misuse. A recent study conducted by Tipton and Krause suggested that profiles need to be saved within the disk and use of strong cryptography so that unauthorized access is reduced. Additional measures need to be taken to ensure that modification of this data is limited to prevent any potential financial informational loss within an organization. Administration accounts are also only to be used for administrative needs and not for other functional uses to prevent the misuse of such privileged accounts. Accounts with escalated privileges need to be closely monitored to ensure that accessibility and use of such privileges are only used in accordance to the security policy. Data protection measures need to also follow organizational policies by using preventative measures to maximize the confidentiality and reduce the vulnerability of data. Backups of a system need to be completed every so often depending on the organizational needs, so that any information that is compromised or lost from an attack, system failure, or accidental misuse can be recovered. The policies within an organization need to clearly identify guidelines for employees and clients to follow so that information is not lost if demanded in an emergency. Stoneburner, in a recent study, recommended for every small to mid-sized business, they need to back up data daily and store and encrypt it properly in a place that is accessible by IT managers. Backups should only be accessed by management and other authorized personnel within the organization to ensure accessibility of data when it's needed. Automated reports should be generated about successful or failed backups so that IT can address the problems that arise that day. These reports need to be reviewed monthly or quarterly as recommended by Stoneburner to ensure that any system failures or glitches that correspond to backup files are addressed immediately. Updating software needs to be a main priority to ensure that employees are using a system that has the latest patches and updates. Updates should be done immediately when advised by service providers when the system is not in use. Updates will allow for the security systems to be fully functional and limit the vulnerabilities discovered previously. But continued scans of updated software need to be made with forever changing technology. Vulnerabilities are always found within new updates as well, so using existing security measures in place will still allow for proper documentation and management of such risks to a system. Finally, employees and clientele also need to be educated on the importance of complex passwords, as mentioned. This education needs to be completed within employee training and be sure to have complex passwords for all users and system access information. Palantir found in another recent study that though passwords need to be changed periodically, that changing your password can often become and lead to frustration and exhaustion of other employees, leading to greater risk of weaker passwords when created. The password guidelines need to be outlined within the security policy as well and followed by all active users. These guidelines need to include such as mixed characters and numbers, no one-word passwords, special characters and capitalization required, and a set password length of 10 or more characters. Refrain from writing passwords down, though, as mentioned before, on sticky notes, left at desks, or anywhere that can easily be lost or mixed into other information that may be accessed by an unauthorized person. To wrap everything up and cover everything we went over, the information security system, is an important practice to be installed in the organization. So, having these implementations is going to reduce the potential internal and external threats and eradicate those potential possibilities to provide a security edge and platform that's going to excel over other businesses. However, the information security system should be generated with the exact requirement of the organization, and the service providers of the system should also be in compliance with the organizational policies. The Security Service Administration or IT department of the organization is also required to make sure that the service is compliant with the organizational requirement and user or employees' knowledge. The proper training of employees is required to ensure that maximum functionality of the security system. Moreover, the continuous maintenance and upgrades of a system is required to ensure that the security system is able to stand against the new security threats and existing security threats rising in the external and external environments. Therefore, the efficient security system will provide the organization with the maximum secured path to transfer and access the location and will protect the business processes from the possible intrusions. Here's our sources that we used throughout our research. If you ever want to check those out, any questions or concerns, leave those in the comments. We'll be trying to answer them all. Appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for listening.